Coates families. First, I'd like to thank the Inniniw Knowledge Keeper, Advocacy, for his opening prayer. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. Before we get started, a few housekeeping tips or things. Washrooms are over here. We ask everybody to silence their phones in respect to the speakers. We ask everybody to hold their questions until all speakers have finished. And then the order of speakers will allow the family to speak first, followed by Councillor Keewatinohk Clark, who is representing Norway House Cree Nation, and followed by our Inniniw Knowledge Keeper, Ed Azure, and then finally we'll be closing off with Dr. Barry LaValle, CEO of KIM. At this time, I'd like to welcome Dana Coates to share her thoughts.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dana Coates. Good morning. My name is Dana Coates. I am Ethan's mother and Caitlin's mother-in-law. I am here today because what happened to Caitlin and Ethan at Thompson General Hospital should never have happened to any mother, to any family. On February 4th, Caitlin and Ethan went to the Thompson General Hospital for what should have been a routine appointment. But instead of care and support, they were met with verbal abuse, neglect, racism, and cruelty from medical staff. During a routine exam, when Ethan asked a question, the doctor got in his face and yelled, "If anything happens to the baby, it's on you." That's not how you treat young parents. The doctor told them they didn't need an ultrasound, only to later insist they get one after already sending them home. At the ultrasound, the technician refused to let Ethan in, even though he had attended all previous appointments. They were aggressive and rough with Caitlin, pushing down too hard on her belly and slamming things around in frustration. They told Caitlin she was late to pick up her kids and that it was because of them, as if my son and daughter-in-law were an inconvenience instead of expectant parents needing care. Then, just as they were trying to process all of this, they received a call from the hospital telling them their baby wasn't breathing. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a moment of pure devastation for our entire family. Caitlin and Ethan were terrified. Our family was shattered. We lived through the worst possible grief, believing that we had lost our first grandchild. And yet when they rushed back to the hospital, staff had no record of that call, no explanation for why they had been told this. The baby was perfectly healthy. What happened to them was not just a bad experience. It was trauma. It was medical neglect. It was completely avoidable. She was overdue in need of proper care, and yet was treated like she didn't matter. The emotional damage of this is lasting. To hear that Caitlin might have lost her baby was unbearable for all of us, our community. My son and daughter-in-law lost trust in the healthcare system that was supposed to protect them. This isn't just about Caitlin's story. This is about a system that continues to fail Indigenous families. We are here today to say this has to stop. No more trauma. No more mistreatment, no more negligence. First Nations mothers deserve safe, compassionate, and racism-free care. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Just when you're speaking in the microphone, sorry, it doesn't have to come so close to your mouth. Just to let you know. Hi, good morning. Sorry. My name is Lynn Albert. I am Caitlin's mother. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of nervous. This was my daughter's first pregnancy. This was supposed to be
a time of joy and excitement. Instead, it turned into a nightmare that we will never forget. When I got a call from my daughter, she was heartbroken and in shock. She told me, "Mom, they said my baby isn't breathing." I cannot describe the pain I felt in that moment. I had to tell Ethan's parents. I had to tell our family. We were all grieving a baby we thought we lost, but it wasn't true. My daughter's baby and my granddaughter was alive, and they had no right to tell her otherwise. No mother should ever have to go through hours of thinking their child is gone. Caitlin was so traumatized. She refused to go back to the hospital. She was afraid to face another doctor. It took days to convince her to seek medical care because she was no longer trusted with the people who were supposed to help her. And she finally got the care she needed. It was not in Thompson, it was in Winnipeg. Pregnant women, especially First Nations mothers, should never be treated this way. They should never be made to feel like a burden. They should never be told their baby is gone. They should never have to beg for proper care. I can't finish it.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to Councillor Clark.
Good morning, everyone. It's a disappointing morning to be here, to be with the family, to share the news that what happened and transpired in Thompson. It was very frustrating for the family to go through a moment of, supposed to be a moment of celebration, to gather together to celebrate the birth of their first grandchild, the birth of their first child. But instead it turned into a nightmare situation for this family, and unfortunately we need to make changes within the system. The government of Manitoba, the Northern Regional Health Authority, Thompson General, they need to hold their staff accountable for the things they've done wrong. Unfortunately, a lot of things like this have happened over and over again to our young people, to our families, our relatives that are in the north. We need to see an end to this type of racism that happens in our hospitals, our healthcare systems. We need to see change in these systems. But too many times our people have been traumatized. They're afraid to enter these facilities because they're scared to be mistreated, and treated in a way that causes them to go too scared to go back there again. This is a young lady that was her first child. It was supposed to be the most memorable moment, but instead it turned into a moment where it was just nothing but fear. To them, asking the minister, I'm asking the Northern Regional Health Authority, Thompson General, to do something about the person that traumatized this family. We need to see the end of this racism in these hospitals. We need to see people to come to work together, to be friendly to our people. We're not to be mistreated like this. This is not 1908. This ain't 1950. This is 2025. This should be not an issue no more, but we should be all working together to take care of our children. I know we've welcomed our visitors to our land, to our territories for many years, and we still welcome them. But today we're asking to continue to make changes to make it better for his family. No mother should ever face this. No child should ever go through a wrong start in life this way. I'm grateful that this child has survived. I don't know if this child would have survived if this mother decided to stay at Thompson General. The reports that we hear from that place, the mistreatment, the bad care that the people get there, it has to stop. We have many stories, many community members that have faced traumatic situations in that hospital. We need to see changes, and we need a review of the services. We need to review the doctors and the way they provide care there. So we need change in that system. Thank you.
We'll now ask our Inniniw Knowledge Keeper, Ed Ewart.
Thank you. Is this thing on? Thank you. Good morning. It was a very fitting start to our discussion here, having the grandmothers speak. You think you know love for a child as a parent, but wait until you're a grandparent. Then you will know true love for a child. I can't imagine the depth of sorrow, hurt, and anguish that these grandmothers, grandfathers went through. It's hard enough seeing your child hurt, but your grandchild? Our people, we give mind to 7 generations down the road. We have ceremonies. We have commitments that we make to ensure the ongoing life of our nation, of our peoples. To hear erroneously that line has been severed. There's no way that I can find the words to describe that anguish. But you grandmothers out there, you will know when your grandchild is sick and is near the time for them to make the change to the spirit world. How difficult that is. This family, there's no other way to say it, but they were tortured. They were abused. And ugly. It was ugliness, pure ugliness. Health care, what kind of caring is that? This little spirit has been damaged. It's like taking an ornate piece of crystal and dropping it on cement and having that explode into millions of pieces. Family is left to gather those little pieces up and try to put it back into some semblance of use. It'll never be the same. We've made ceremonies already to help the family heal from this. There's the belly button ceremony. I'm sure Granny and Grandpa are making efforts to put that ceremony in place. My friends, I have nothing but hope that you will not let TGH get away with this. They've been doing it for too long. And it's not just TGH. It's healthcare in general. My heart goes out to the family, especially the grandmothers here. I'm a great-grandfather myself. My heart aches for you.
Thank you, everyone, for the supportive words for Caitlin and Ethan. At this time, I invite Dr. Barry LaValle, CEO of Keewatinohk Inniniw Minoayawin, for his closing remarks.
Is that good? Yeah. I got the call like really almost hours after this violence occurred upon this family from Norway House. And I spoke with Grandma, and there was a profound sense that was really difficult to contain for me as one of the leaders in the North for First Nations around the issue of health and healing of those 70,000 or so original people and the owners of those lands and these lands. And it was hard to contain and to try and sort out what was true in terms of what information had been conveyed to the mom, you know, a young mom-to-be, loved by 30 people in Norway House. And as I was putting the case together and trying to figure out with the leadership of Norway House how to obtain information, how to obtain the correct information to, number one, ascertain that this baby was alive, and number two, to look at what risk the pregnancy had been deemed, and number three, how to actually support this family in a way that couldn't reestablish the trust that had been fractured violently during that encounter for that young woman. And what ended up happening is that we worked with the leadership and the family and tried to provide words of comfort and caring and conveying that this family was really important. But what was overwhelming for me as one of the leaders in the North was the degree of crying and fear that in one moment of time from some provider who, I don't know, it appears was unconcerned about the emotions of this mom, okay, by herself trying to ascertain, is my baby okay? And then for the information to be conveyed in such a way that as if something happened to this child, it's the family's fault. And I'm going to tell you, the family did not want to communicate with Thompson General, and I supported that. Because why would you go back to the people who just hurt you profoundly? And there are people crying in Norway House. They were crying because they thought they lost their baby. And so mom and grandma actually blocked TGH lines. And so they tried to triangulate with me. I said, that's not my business. I said, I wouldn't go back to TGH after being treated like that as well. And so what we did was we worked with the leadership, and finally we got mom down to Winnipeg, and we explained to Winnipeg the trauma that this family had been under, and kind of our expectation to deliver this baby and to keep mom and the family informed. And the real thing was that what appeared to me I'm an expert in First Nations health and looking at systems, is that TGH people were trying to get information because they were scared that something would happen to this baby and that it would probably reflect back on the care they provided. And it would had. And it would have, right? It would have. So what was more profound for us for this case, and everything that we're doing here today, all of you here, everybody, Ed is here, we have the prayers here, this is in support of the family. This isn't about talking about racism to a system that is immune to the damage it does from one moment to the next, and with no consideration that the fracturing of this mom's love for her baby that she had has been fractured by colonization once again. Now this family is not going to go to a counselor for a week and everything's done. It's not one prayer for a week and everything's done. This is going to affect Caitlin and her baby for the next 40 years. It'll always be in the back of her mind, always be in the back of the family's mind. Because at the moment that this mom wants to know about her baby, that is spiritual. I'm not Cree, but it's said that the Cree language talks about the baby in terms of Creator and God. And that's how profound this moment is. Okay, it's very profound and it's intergenerational. And what happened at Thompson General Hospital is a contribution to intergenerational trauma for First Nations. It has purpose. And the purpose is to diminish the heart and the mind of the next generations of First Nations people. Health systems are complicit in propagating First Nation specific racism to do the duty of settler Canada to First Nations people. And one of the most profound things that we realize is that this family here represents the original people of the lands that white people, capitalists, want continuously. And in order to get access to those lands, you need to kill us. We need to diminish our lives in such a way that we can't see that we come from that earth and that earth is ours. And although I'm a scientist, I'm a medical scientist, I never learned this stuff in medical school. I learned it from Ed, and I learned it from the families to make the connection about why does this occur. And more importantly, why is it that the healthcare systems, the medical and nursing systems can't see First Nation specific racism that is in action all the time? And we know, and we conveyed this to the federal government, that if you hold stereotypes about First Nations people that are racist in origin and generated by settler Canada, and if you have power, as much as being a security guard at Health Science Centre, that are tasked always with removing the First Nations body when a First Nations mom, for example, wants care for her child, she's thought to be actually a threat. And so they remove her. That's how we're dealt with within the system. So that is power. And when you have a stereotype to think that somebody like Caitlin is not a good mother, and then you have the power, then this is a consequence. This is not just, I need an apology letter. This requires our community to invest a lot of time and think about the future of that baby. Because we need leaders. And she might be the prime minister one day, guys. Why would you treat a future prime minister for Canada like that? Why would you do that? So we come up here, and the family is sad, profoundly still, and yet you can't see what's happening. We want that provider removed from delivering care to First Nations people. Now let me tell you, what we talk about now, we talk about hatred of First Nations people within the healthcare system. And my messaging again to the physicians and to the nurses and to everybody in TGH, Health Science Center, St. Boniface Children, if you harbor hatred of First Nations people, leave your job. We don't need you. We don't want you. In fact, you could do much more damage to us as a provider and a holder of power in that system than we can. And we've known that for generations across the world. If you are racist and you harbor it and you hold it silent to yourself, please leave your job. There's a lot of room where there's white people only that are being treated, if that's your preference. But do not make money off of our needs, because we have a lot of needs and we're very important. And we don't want to continue to pay your mortgage and your future and they get this kind of care. Now, those seem like harsh words, but we no longer, if you hate First Nations people, leave. That's what's been happening for 150 years anyway. But I want to thank the family and the leadership, and I want to thank Ed, my friend here, for coming here. We are here to support that baby. You know, we're here to support that baby. We have a vision about where that baby's going to be. A very important leader for our community that causes liberation of First Nations people. And that's what I have to say. Now, what about our Tikanagan?
We'll ask Luana Hall to come up and
Hello, my name is Rowena Hall. I'm originally from Keewatinohk First Nation, and my heart goes out to the family, the baby, and I was asked to make something for her, and we made her a moss bag, and this teaches our children discipline and security. So I always want that for your daughter, to always feel secure and safe from this moment on. Thank you.
so we'll open up the floor to some questions. We ask that the media introduce themselves and what organization they represent, and keep your questions mindful during this time.
I'm Nevin Hall with City News. Would you be able to share the hospital and what
That I've never obtained permission from that. Yeah, from Mom. And that would be her to respond to that.
Sarah Buttons. I was wondering if either Councillor Clark or Dr. LaValle, can you talk a bit more about the specific changes that are needed and, you know, this sort of chain of people that are, you know, what needs to be reformed?
I can share quickly, briefly. I'll get Dr. LaValle to elaborate. First Nations people have always shown interest in participating in reforming healthcare for our people and in the North. But unfortunately, we've been left out. We've been left on the outside not to work with, what was this one? We've been left outside of the system. We were not part of the discussions that happened on the level of the government of Manitoba. We've been left out of discussions for months and years now. Our organization here has been meeting together with many First Nations in the North to try to reform First Nations for the North. We want to see better health care. We want to see health care brought forward into even to the First Nations. But we've been always left out because we're not provincial responsibility. We're not Manitobans. We're not considered that way because we're considered federal responsibility. But we need the province of Manitoba to work with us, to collaborate with us, and we need the regional health authorities to work with First Nations and work with leadership in different places to help our people. I know a lot of our people have begun to work for the systems. There's doctors, there's nurses that our people work together in these systems, but unfortunately, these systems still have not allowed our people to partake in the administrative, the authorities. We've been left out of those circles, and there we are as First Nations people, we leaders, community members, and health leaders have been meeting together on how we want to see change in the north. We want to see better health care. We want to see our children giving birth in our brand new health center in the north. But again, the province of Manitoba doesn't want to work with us. They haven't been. They've been slowly working with us. The health center that we've built in our community, it's done. But where was Manitoba all these years? Where were they? Where's the collaboration? They were not there. Now we got a building there that's sitting empty because they refused to work with us for years. Now we got somewhat discussions going on, but that's very little. There's very little. The government has been in there for how long now? But there's been very little progress. We need to hurry up because things like this should not happen. If we had our own doctors, had our own birthing centers, we have the space, but we need the investment from the government. Doctor?
That's a good question, but I think there's some assumptions behind your questions. So I think, I'm wondering if you believe structural changes will make an impact. Is that kind of what you're asking me?
Just wondering, you know, you I'm just sort of wondering, you know, yeah, I guess about, you know, structural change, bringing in, having concentrates.
Yeah, no, I think, I've been doing this work for about 35 years now, kind of globally with First Nations people. And I've studied the system. I know it better than they do. I know their medical schools better than they do, and I know their nursing schools better than they do. And I know the genesis of how it is you create a provider who is given the privilege of hundreds of thousands of your tax money to allow he, she, or they to become a doctor, and then to be placed in an area that has a huge number of First Nations people who are impacted by 150 years of colonization, so devastating that our rates of unemployment are the highest in Canada. Our rates of TB and colonially acquired diseases like HIV and syphilis are the highest still. And yet in this first world called Canada and Manitoba, you don't have enough money for us, and that's what Councillor Dion is saying. We can take over the systems and we can hire and fire people. And if you have such profound hatred of First Nations people, I'm going to fire you and you will not get a job. Go somewhere else. So really the issue about the resourcing is that the resourcing is limited not by the fact that we're poor as a province, but by the fact that Sector Canada, including Manitoba, really in the overall end wants us to die because of the land. And so what you see here is you see Haley's Comet. I have a picture here. Could you grab that picture for me? Thank you. One of my Indigenous medical students drew this for me, and it's of Brian Sinclair. Now, this isn't to take over what happened to this family, but when we analyzed Brian Sinclair, we knew that structural changes in the system were impossible. Why? Because of the sustained stereotypes that diminish our ability to be leaders and to declare things. But we know how to run healthcare systems, believe me. We know how to do surgeries, and we know how to do ultrasounds, and we know how to deliver babies in an area that is free of racism. Not racism for everybody, but First Nations developed racism is a necessity of the Prime Minister of this country and everybody else. And what we're tasked with doing, even though we could develop our doctors, our PhDs, et cetera, we still don't have the power. Because although I know the master's tools, those master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. So that goes back to your question about what is there to do. Get out, give us the resources and money, and we'll take over. Because we're not going to waste the last 30 years around cultural competency, cultural safety, all those kinds of things. It doesn't work. This is structural violence against First Nations people, and nobody attends to what's happening to this family right now. That's where we have to come in and take care of your business that you've done. So even if we have a CEO for Northern Regional Health, it's not going to change because the source of power goes to settlers in the area who compromise 30% versus 70% of the people who come from that land. They're not immigrants. We're not immigrants to our land. But this society has made us refugees on our own land. When you sit on the walk on this land, that's his ancestors for 20,000. That's her ancestors for 20,000 years. That's mine. We make the organic nature of this world. It's not European. This is First Nations, and it has always been. And so because of that distinction, you see the damage that's done here. Now, our families, our grandmothers, our grandpas, our aunties, our uncles are going to have to bring a lot of love. But that's how horrible this is. We are profoundly affected by this healthcare system being committed to diminishing the wellness of First Nations people. So much so that Brian Sinclair was killed. He was murdered, and we call it social murder. He didn't die because he sniffed. He didn't die because he was poor. He was killed because he was First Nations. And all they did was attach stereotypes, which are deadly. And in this case, it almost killed this baby. Not the mom, not the grandma, not the dad. This was a system. It is your responsibility. And we're calling you out, and we want those providers not taught. There's no teaching somebody who's racist. You can't unteach them racism. That is a stupid, and profoundly dumb way to address the providers who hurt this family. I say fire them. Fire them. And let us take over.
No mother should ever be made to feel like a burden or abused just for asking for help. No family should have to grieve for a child who is still alive because of racism and neglect. No Indigenous woman should have to fight to be treated with respect in a hospital. This isn't just about me. It's about every Indigenous mother who has been ignored, disrespected, or treated unfairly. This has to stop. We deserve care. We deserve to be safe. We deserve respect. I'm speaking out because no one should ever have to go through this again. What we experienced was not health care, it was not care at all. No receptionist.
That's going to conclude the media conference. If you haven't received a press release from you already, we have one over here. Thank you all for coming.